I'm Caitlin Doornbos with the New York Post, and I'm here with Ambassador Olha Stefanishyna of Ukraine here to the U.S. And you have come on at a really interesting period where we have the U.S. and Ukraine really speaking a lot more together, and also just a better understanding in general. We're told that President Trump has of what's going on the battlefield and what needs to happen to really end this war and end the killing. I would like to just ask you there to start out with, how do you end the war?
You say end the war?
Yeah.
We just do it.
Yeah.
So we can, well, first we can do it. Mm-hmm. And I think generally after all of this months of discussions, we know how to do it, mm-hmm. and we just have to do it.
Yeah. So, and looking at the ways to do it, there seem to be some principles that have risen as far as partnership with the U.S. We've heard of the U.S. mineral deal with Ukraine. We've heard of the upcoming drone deal between the U.S. and Ukraine. Building out these different partnerships, I imagine those all have part to do with ending the war. It's not just going to be, an agreement signed the way we saw earlier with negotiations. It sounds like there are different pieces that can be used to end and bring about a real stop to the war. Can you highlight some of those elements?
Well, definitely I can, and I'm really happy that it's now I'm speaking out not only Ukrainian position, but commonly agreed position between the allies and a voice here in Ukraine. First, this should be the just peace. Mm-hmm. Second, we're speaking about ending the war, not keeping Ukraine fighting. This is a huge difference, and we do not read these two sentences in the same way. It's very different.
Let's talk more about that specifically, because that is something that you're bringing as an ambassador now during this time. You're taking over for the prior ambassador who worked primarily with the Biden administration, which had a very different view of how it needed to help Ukraine. You are coming in with this new background, new angle of how to get these things done. And I think that's specifically about ending the war rather than just keeping Ukraine in the fight for an extended period of time. That's something specific that I think you bring to the table, and I would love to hear you just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when we are speaking about keep Ukraine fighting, it means that instead of actually making sure that Ukraine is capable to defend itself and to save its armed forces, we have to permanently engage in discussion whether this kind of type of military which could be provided to Ukraine or not, because for God's sake, we have to avoid the situation where Ukraine will be successful in this type of military and might really show that it's capable of ending the war or winning, mm-hmm. right? So everything was considered through this prism. And now when we're speaking about ending the war, the issue of defense, the issue of air defense is playing with a different role, because these are different things. Ukraine has to be able to secure itself throughout the war while we are on a way, where we are in a process. And we are now speaking about ability to procure the military from U.S. and other allies. And it means that it is us and European NATO command who will identify the priorities on a battlefield, and it will be procured, meaning that this is a totally different reality. And it's not just words which were said then and versus words which are said now. These are the processes which are fundamentally different.
So, and that procurement is actually buying from U.S. defense industries, right?
Yes.
That's a big, I think, difference in what we're seeing here.
It was also buying from the U.S. defense industries. It's not a secret that 80% of all resources mobilized through Congress for military support in Ukraine were left in the United States. So, and it was through providing Ukraine with the military support which has been developed, produced, and originating from the United States, or provided to the allies so that allies could provide military support to Ukraine. Yeah. So it has been this way, but when we are speaking about what is happening right now and with this procurement, it's different because we can make a planning strategical. We can make it operational. We can make it prioritized based and needs based. And it's much more structured. Also because NATO is much more structured right now, but also because this is a different process which is really strengthening our capabilities.
And one of those things that we have heard about as far as weapon systems that are needed still for that Ukraine and Europe is interested in purchasing from the U.S. I've heard a lot about the Tomahawk missiles. Is there anything that you can tell us about discussions that are going on there? Or any other priorities for air defense?
Of course not. I think
it's fine.
Of course not. But there is and there was a discussion about the ability to procure the longer range missiles for some weaponry systems in Ukraine. Because it's effective. We're speaking about the active war zone happening in the middle of Europe, which is evolving from the aggression of one state against the other. So Ukraine has not been in a conflict. It's not a conflict between two states. We never ever breached any territory of Russian Federation. We never had territorial conflicts. And I want to recall that it is Ukraine who left the Soviet Union without a drop of blood, right? And the Soviet Union collapsed without a drop of blood, right? And I mean, this is a very important thing. And that's why when we're speaking about our ability to defend ourselves, it's absolutely legitimate to get access to the technologies which allow to destroy the capacity of enemy to attack our cities. And it's placed on the territory of the enemy. And it's much more effective, and it enables us to not only accumulate resources to prevent one attack and allow for 10 other night attacks over Ukrainian cities. It enables us to prevent every attack Russians would have intention to do on Ukrainian cities, meaning depriving Russians from the incentive to do so. So it's a game-changing instrument which will force Russians to change their techniques and will deprive them from incentive to attack Ukrainian houses and to kill Ukrainian families and children all across Ukraine. So it's very important to us, and we hope to advance in this direction.
So you've arrived here in the United States, and you bring with you your family as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what that transition has been like coming from Ukraine to the U.S.? Obviously, your children are not in a country at war. I'm sure that's a relief to you as a mother. Can you give us a little bit more insight into your life and how that transition has been going?
Yeah, indeed, I'm here with two of my kids. So they're like 9 and 13, and they came with me right after the visit of the president. They're settling well, but also it's rather sad to recall that once I had to make a choice, between performing my duty and being a mother, and at some point I had to make a choice that I still want to perform my duty and to be a mother. And although they were leaving the country the first months of war, they came back because they wanted to stay with me. So we lived through this years together, and of course now sleeping at night is a luxury we are enjoying, but also reading through the media on the ongoing missile attacks is extremely painful, because all our friends and families are still there. But I'm really happy that I'm here with my family and with my kids, because they've been with me as comrades throughout all of their lives, and they share all elements of my life together, and I'm extremely grateful to them that they are so understanding and loving, and they agreed to come with me, you know, to stay with me here, although it's really a hard decision for them as well.
So coming here to the United States, you got here just about a week and a half ago, right? How are you easing into the role, and what are your thoughts so far?
Well, I think it was almost something very common to a military operation. So it was a decision of my president that I will be onboarded in Washington as soon as it is like possible. And it was a very, operative process of engaging with the State Department and going through these formal procedures. So, and it was his decision that I will have to arrive to Washington before UN General Assembly and his visit to U.S. So I didn't have too much time, you know, planning, thinking. I would just descended here. Putin right in front of the upcoming visit of the president, and I think it went pretty well.
Well, I think that is a great point too about really President Zelensky wanting to get you here before U.S. UNGA and get you on the floor to kind of coordinate this new effort as Ukraine and the U.S. are really deepening a relationship. At least that's what my reporting has found as far as President Trump and President Zelensky talking more. Can you speak to that? I mean, why was that so important for President Zelensky to get you here to be working with the Trump administration ahead of all of these announcements at UNGA and then, you know, continuing into the fall?
So it was his decision at the very beginning that after 5 years of serving in the Ukrainian government, including the period when the full-scale invasion started since 24th of February 2022, he knows me very well. I think he is the person who knows me from every possible political and professional angle. We've been in different situations. We've been there when the war started. So he made a decision that after all of these years, the priority orientation he wants me to be on is the cooperation and relations between Ukraine and U.S. Of course, when it comes to ending the war in Ukraine, but in a broader sense, you know, discovering all the opportunities for our bilateral relations which are possible. So this was his decision on this basis, but also he understands that there's like not too many engagements at the level of the leaders which are taking place, especially when you're in different parts of the world. So it was very important to him that following, 2 months spent in Kiev preparing for my new mission, I will make sure that all of this knowledge and preparation will be used in preparation of their meetings between President Zelensky and President Trump.
What can we expect as far as your approach to diplomacy and this burgeoning relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine? I mean, I'm probably characterizing it wrong because the U.S. and Ukraine have obviously a long time had relationships. But I want to speak about the Trump administration and what you bring to the table with, kind of dealing with this set of priorities by the administration that see a lot of, they're looking for partnership between U.S. and Ukraine. They're looking for partnership with foreign entities, and they have a very different approach than the Biden administration. So how do you foresee that kind of going, and what do you bring to the table that helps speak to really the Trump administration's goals and what they want to see happen?
Well, I think first and foremost, what is really important that I had a very warm welcome here when I arrived. immediately I had a lot of meetings with the State Department, the White House. There was a lot of outreach to me from different partners, colleagues, and organizations suggesting their support. And there was a lot of curiosity and interest of getting to know what's the new ambassador bringing on the table, and it was very positive. And it's the very fact that within 5 days after I was onboarded to DC, I managed to go through all the necessary diplomatic procedure to become a full-fledged ambassador already before the meeting between two leaders. I think it speaks for itself. But also, I think there are a number of elements which are important. First, I have a background which is based on a number of principal pillars. First, I'm a professional negotiator, so I can negotiate, and I negotiate on everything, and I've been doing it, in my different capacities and on different files I was running in the government. Second, I've spent the last years making sure that Ukraine becomes a member of European Union and part of larger European family, meaning that, one of the jobs was to keep all EU member states together, united on these or that issues, and making sure that we provide necessary national and domestic background for this. So I think Ukraine's role and my role in terms of coordinating these efforts, explaining these efforts, and putting them all together for the sake of ending the war, for the sake of economic prosperity, and also for the sake of putting more pressure and increasing the price of the war for the aggressor, who's Russian Federation, and Putin personally, of course, is very important. And I have no other interest but to put any effort and any professional background I have to help President Trump to implement his promise to end the war. I think it's priceless. And, I understand that now we all understand that it's not ending the war is a process, and it requires some elements to be put into this pipeline. The good thing is that not all of them require engagement with the aggressor, and I think we're on a good track in terms of many things. And I think whatever we can do as a country, and I can do as ambassador to serve this purpose, to bring the just peace on my land, but also to make sure that President Trump is committedly delivering on this promise, is more than important for my country, but also for me as an ambassador.
Of course, and those priorities for President Trump, obviously ending the war. He wants to stop the killing. He's been after this since he came into office. It's proven incredibly challenging, particularly because of the aggressor of Russia and Russian President Vladimir Putin, just real inability to give anything as far as in negotiations. You're a professional negotiator. What kind of advice would you provide to, as far as going forward? I know you mentioned that there is a lot of things that the U.S. and Ukraine can do to try to bring Putin to the table without even contacting the aggressor. If you can give some more insight into that, as well as what we should kind of see going forward within the next months too.
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of things which are very well on track. First, these are discussions with European and American allies on the security guarantees. And following the meeting of President Zelensky and President Trump in the Oval Office and then with European leaders, it has become clear, and it's a statement made, that security guarantees should be something solid. It should be something really enforceable, and it should be something happening prior to any other negotiations with the aggressor, right? So this is a development which has never been taking place since the beginning of war. And this is the arrangement which is targeted to end the war, but not to keep Ukraine fighting. That's a huge shift and a really big difference. We also have a good dialogue on the economic fora. So the mineral deal through the mineral deal, the Recovery and Reconstruction Fund has been established, and it's the first time since Ukraine gained independence, in fact. So the first time when Ukraine gained independence and U.S. has onboarded its diplomatic presence major American companies like McDonald's, like Coca-Cola, like Cargill, like many others names, they came to Ukrainian market and they're still present heavily there. So, and it's only now when we have the new momentum for scaling up economic and industrial cooperation. This is unbelievable, and we have so much potential to reveal, and we are fully open to that. And I think the third very important element is that history is being repeated. And we remember that back in a time Soviet Union collapsed because being a Soviet Union was too expensive. The pressure was too high to fuel all the propaganda and military machines and all the conflicts around the world. And this playbook is still there, and there's no Soviet Union, it's only Russia. Yeah, it's big, but it's not that big. And all the secrets are not secrets anymore. We know what is the blood of war. It's the gas, it's the trade and influence, it's the open data information from the Russian military doctrine that energy is used as the major instrument of geopolitical influence. So, I mean, there's no too many secrets, and putting pressure is the duty of morale. It's a moral duty, I think, because when you know something that could avoid killing people, you really need to make it happen. And I still think that without being really blunt on combining these efforts, EU would not be able to come up with such a strong package of proposals. And I think combined with the US, this could be a really heavy shot, and it would really help us to feel more secure from the perspective that the war machine will not be having the necessary fuel. But of course, I think it's also important to communicate a lot about Ukraine, about the real military situation, and I take it as an obligation as an ambassador, because when Russians are saying that they're advancing, it's kind of funny to hear that, because I may look like a diplomat, but I'm coming from a country at war where I spent every single moment in my country with my family. And nearly, every third person I know is serving in the armed forces. And I know what war is. And even not being a military person, I can say that it is not true. And I'm ready to show it. But also, a very short comment, but also something we've learned that is to give back. And we want to have a major drone arrangement with the United States to give back our knowledge and our capabilities to strengthen America, but also to strengthen the NATO as well.
Yeah, these are all really great points. I want to dig into really each of them. As far as, I think you made a really excellent point about the security guarantees. President Trump putting together, along with Europe, this package of security guarantees that doesn't just end the war, because it's not about just ending this conflict, if I'm hearing you right. I mean, it's about this larger being able to stop Russia from pushing further, from continuing its war if it gets to pause. I mean, it needs to be stopped immediately. And you also made a really good point about the Soviet Union. It fell because of the economy, and it just couldn't sustain those levels of operation. Do you think that, giving these security guarantees, really strong security guarantees that would block Russia from continuing its war into the future. That has global consequences, I would assume. It's not just about Ukraine, but if Russia is pushing itself to the brink of an economic collapse, that's not good for anyone involved. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I don't think it would have a major effect to any of the markets. Again, in 2022, Europe has on board that they have sanctions and the 2020,000 gas phase-out plan. So, I mean, like 5 years ago, it seemed so impossible. Even with the first term of the President Trump, it was President Trump who has put in the sanctions on the Nord Stream 2, while it was not a workable solution, with Germans saying this is not geopolitical, this is survival, and now this project stopped existing, Yeah. So it's just like we all remember this. Yes. We're not forgetting this. So it's all about politics and the dependence. There's no such thing as dependence because Russia is not a major market. It's the source market, and even the major source of their trade, which is gas and oil, has proven to be not something you cannot survive without. Right? So, and I don't think that anyone could really feel a major effect if Russia faces economic struggles, because this has proven to be something not critical at every other point of the history. So, and I'm sure that with the new, let's say, trade and economic policy, U.S. administration has started to move ahead. I think there is a full openness to numerous unconventional solutions, and I think, look, right, Russia is building ties with North Korea, with Iran, and with China at some point. But look, we have the United States, the European Union, and Arab countries sticking together, making sure that we all take effort to end the war, to bring the peace globally. And also, I haven't seen in any part of the world, of this part of the world, any destructive efforts. So there should be no fear in this regard. And if united, there should be no effect to anyone, even if it's a smaller player.
So there are a lot of opportunities of partnership. We've been hearing a lot from Kyiv as far as the mineral deal. Is there any way you can break down that mineral deal and how that could actually benefit the U.S.? I think that there needs to be a greater understanding of what that mineral deal means and how you could see it going into the future, being used to potentially create economic partnerships between the U.S. and Ukraine even after the war.
Yeah, well, I think two things. Probably first, Ukraine, even throughout the full-scale war, has proven to be a reliable partner. Once we have an agreement on something, we fulfill our obligations, meaning that this is a long-term and reliable partnership, and even if it's concluded throughout the war, we still perform our obligations. This is very important. Second, Ukraine as a long-term and reliable partner can be part of the plan to substitute the presence of other third countries which are not likely to be used, and we're speaking about lithium and uranium, which are critical to a new developing and evolving technologies. And of course, Russian presence in these markets can easily be substituted, but could not be substituted without U.S. helping us to explore all this mineral potential in Ukraine. Yeah. And it is absolutely fantastic, I think, for top American companies who are getting the opportunities to engage with the biggest European market outside of European Union, basically on European continent, which is a new. There's not so many new markets in a center of democratic world which you can were not successful in any kind of this engagement throughout entire our history. So this is the first agreement which gives enormous opportunity and a fast track to American companies to be onboarded on Ukraine, welcomed and babysitted there. So it's absolutely fantastic. Our duty and duty of our government and duty of American counterparts is to make this a real big thing, because the signature of this agreement was a real big thing. And I think where we have to put more energy is promoting this agreement and promoting these investments to Ukraine and making sure that the biggest American players are interested in that and are looking forward to engaging with the U.S. government to come to Ukraine.
Yeah, and just to break that down, I mean, this arrangement was created and under the Trump administration with Ukraine, and it sees the profits being split 50-50. So every American company that comes and does business in Ukraine has this opportunity to really, benefit both countries. Particularly as President Trump is pushing Europe to get off of Russian oil. It seems that there is a market there as Europe is trying to find where their next source of oil is going to come from. Do you see there being a market there between the U.S. and Ukraine partnering as far as trying to help get Europe off of Russian oil and possibly even onto American oil, which is where President Trump is a big believer in, drill baby drill, and pushing American independence in energy and being an exporter as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a big potential, and I'm going to have a number of meetings in the course of this week speaking about energy emergency in Ukraine, evolving from the results of the massive missile attacks on different elements of Ukrainian energy infrastructure. And there's definitely a potential to strengthen up Ukraine's resilience against these attacks by securing the supplies of gas and oil. I'm not in a position to go into more details because it's an issue of national security, and it's not only our American and Ukrainian and European friends will be watching this interview. The enemy will also be watching this interview very closely, putting the quotations of different answers I'd have. But definitely there is a unbelievably big potential on the table, and this is something evolving from the tragedy, loss, and the war. But it's also a huge opportunity to deprive, again, the aggressor from its instrument of influence, but also from the fuel of war, by putting pressure on them, but also by guaranteeing the sustainability of supplies and access to resources, regardless the ongoing military attack and military threats.
Yeah, and along those same lines, I mean, between the partnership between U.S. and Ukraine. When I was in Ukraine in July, President Zelensky told me about this drone mega deal that had been talked about between he and President Trump. And we're now several months out. If you can give me an idea of an update on where that sits and how this could be beneficial for the U.S. and Ukraine, as far as I understand, there's technology and technical means of being able to share from each other and learn.
Well, what I can say, it's a Godspeed development after the last meeting presidents had. So there's been a technical consultations. There was a proposal from Ukrainian side, originating from Ukrainian side, from Ukrainian president's team and Ministry of Defense team. It was really going very, very, very slowly. But over the meetings presidents had in New York, there was a rather detailed discussion about how do we understand this drone arrangements and what is the spirit we put into that as the contribution of knowledge and increasing our own capacity through increasing the capacity and knowledge of the U.S. Armed Forces. And after this meeting, things started to evolve very fast. And it's only last week where Ukrainian delegation left Washington and spent 3 full working days here working with the Pentagon and the State Department and Security Council, and it was a very good set of meetings. There is a lot of knowledge evolving from that, and I think what is really important that we really have the ability to physically present the capabilities we managed to build in DC, and I will be suggesting to have a physical representation or demonstration of Ukrainian capabilities in US. I think it's very important to see it with your own eyes, because this is something which is brand new, never existed in the world history. Nobody in the world has this knowledge and capacity, and you cannot simply understand what we're talking about by presentations, by talking over. You have to see it, you have to experience it, you have to see the guys operating on the drones. You've seen it, you've been to Kiev, you know.
That's the thing, is that I think is I'm really interested in this drone deal after having been to the battlefield multiple times reporting for the New York Post. It's fascinating to see how quickly the war has developed along the lines of drones. The United States has always been at the forefront of developing big drones, the types that we would use for over-the-horizon capabilities in taking out terrorists in the Middle East, for example. But what we're seeing on the battlefield in Ukraine is very different. We're seeing small drones being piloted and targeting individuals. We're seeing, obviously, Shahids and other larger drones, but still the types of drones that are able to be produced in mass quantities to overwhelm your enemy. And do you think the United States is prepared for having to go to war in a situation like that? And could this partnership help kind of bridge that gap?
Well, in no reality, we would not want to do this planning, or the drone deal does not presume that these are the capabilities or capacities which will be used in case of war. So because drones, they are performing their function on a battlefield right now, but this is so much more than just drones performing a military operation. This is ecosystem. So this is a ecosystem of some sort of a classified elements, but it could be used both for military and for civilian purposes. And Ukrainian drone capabilities, they are helping to save the lives. It means that you don't have to send people, you know, and the Ukrainian drone capacity does not allow even Russian heavy equipment to move along the line, because the moment the Russian tanks shows up, you know, it's being destroyed, because everything is seen. It's reconnaissance, it's the assessment of the situation, it's patrolling, it could be used for multiple purposes, and we do not know all the needs of the U.S. military and National Guard and other services, but definitely it's a unique capacity and a unique ecosystem which could be used for various purposes in the sea, in the air, and we also have a fantastic new developed capacity, the unmanned system. So while Russia is developing this, very primitive Shahed drones to destroy and kill, we have developed the ecosystem which allows to save life of the soldiers on the front line, prevent aggressor from moving forward, but also know the situation around 24/7, but also to conduct the deep strikes and other spider-like operations on the territory of enemies. So our main goal is to scale up and learn on this knowledge, but also to increase our own capacities to be even more effective with these technologies on the front line.
That's very fascinating too, especially when it comes to the U.S. In the civilian market. I know the U.S. relies a lot on China for these types of technologies. But can you speak to a little bit more about Ukraine's role emerging in drone technology and really becoming a dominating force in updating it and also getting it out into the industry?
Yeah, this is one of the very interesting insights, because the needs on the front line are growing, the technologies are growing and being permanently updated. The needs for components are also very big, and you can just not really procure through open platforms everything, and some deliveries are taking a really long time. So there are a number of drone producers who have started to invest in developing the technologies and components which will be originating from Ukraine and which reduce the dependence from the deliveries and the foreign components, including Chinese components, which are massively, available. So with the access to additional investment capacities, our companies will be able to go and form the roadmap of full substitution of these components. We have these capacities, we have these productions, and we have all the necessary elements available for that.
So in talking about all of these different areas, we've got the Ukraine deal, we've got the Ukraine mineral deal, we've got the drone mega deal. We have more diplomatic contacts than we've seen in the past between the U.S. and Ukraine. What can we kind of expect for the future as far as when it comes to ending the war, ultimately? Are you looking forward to sanctions, or are you looking forward to other things that we've heard a lot about as far as security guarantees? We haven't heard as much about talks between President Trump and President Putin of Russia. Where do you kind of foresee it going right now?
First, I'm definitely not the person who might be disappointed by some statements or upset with them. I've been living through the war for a long time, and all the tears are being cried after, everyone who have been lost or killed, or every child who have been lost throughout this war. So emotions is not something that could be really affected in me because somebody said something we did not like or did something we do not like. So I'm not going to give up until I can sleep peacefully in my bed, knowing that I don't have to wake up every 15 minutes, and I'm not eligible to sleep because my kids are under threat. So emotions is not something that is so much important. I think what is important is that what do we really have, and we have a unique opportunity to end the war. First time since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, and since, frankly speaking, 2014, we are straightforward in terms of where we are and where do we go. This is unbelievable. This is something I never experienced through my political career with the allies. Everybody have their own role to play. European allies are mobilizing to be financially capable to procure. U.S. is ready to provide Ukraine with the weapons necessary to defend itself. We are building the security guarantees, and we now understand that Russian president is a paper tiger, as someone very important said, because Russians are very easily readable. They always agree on something on a first meeting. They always nice, and they always understand what's important for you. They know that for President Trump, ending the war is important because he made this commitment. He knows that for Ukrainians, this is first and last point in the agenda to speak about how to end the war, because our people are dying, because he's killing our people, and he's killing more so that we talk more about ending the war. And that's why they're talking about ending the war, but they don't really plan it, because they know they're talking about that because they know it's important for us. But what they do, they try to make their own little deals on the way, lifting the sanctions here, bringing more investment capacities here. Let's take all this Europe and Ukraine away. Here's the Arctic. That's a very nice location. There are like only white bears, no people, no territory. There's no territory to be explored. So Russians are in fact an open book, and you should just read it. And they really stick to the limits when the limits are put in front of them. And I think this is the momentum that we've never experienced before, that we can really end the war. And we have to acknowledge the fact that it's a process. It's not a one-time arrangement. And the good thing about that, this is an understood process. And I think that without, having my president as a president in Ukraine and the President Trump as the president who's really not always says something everyone likes, but eventually it makes a difference. This is a unique chance, and my task is to make every possible step to make it work. And this is the hope of Ukrainian people, and I really hope I can stick to that. And by the end of the day, if all the components we've discussed are in place, and Ukraine is able to secure its sky, we're able to defend ourselves against the aggression, we have the necessary military deterrence arsenal, which gives Russian signal that try again and you will be hit back. We know every location of your strategic location you have, and once you try to make any provocation, it will be destroyed. I think this is something that makes this initial talks with Russia very different. And this is something, and as you call it, ceremonial, when you negotiate the agreement, when somebody meets and makes a signature, it's only a final ceremonial element. So I think there's a lot of potential to be explored. There is a momentum which is now, and we have to keep on this energy and making sure that, we do not relax, we do not get distracted, and we do not falling for Russian traps and games, because all they do, they buy time. They commit to something they are not intend to deliver on, and they make their little dirty deals throughout the way.
Yeah, I think that is such a key point to target on, because you came on really during a shift. President Trump really, his frustrations with Putin after the continued delayed talks didn't really go anywhere. Is that part of your efforts here, is to show President Trump that Ukraine is willing to work and actually follow through on a lot of the things that it discusses in its negotiations, unlike Russia, which really hasn't followed through on any of its wordplay that it's used with President Trump?
Well, I'm not the person who is the most regular visitor to President Trump. Of course, I don't see him all the time. But I think I would make only one point out of it. I have a very simple mandate. I need to make sure that Ukrainian leadership, Ukrainian president, Ukrainian administration, Ukraine as a country is understood here. Our intentions are understood and well communicated, but also that whatever information is needed from Ukraine, whatever actions are needed, just call the ambassador of Ukraine and it will be done and truly and correctly delivered. I have no other intention or no other mandate that to make sure that these relations are solid, they built. They are built. They are bringing the benefit to both countries, but also, what is more important, that these efforts at the level of all the world and personally President Trump are successful. No other things are in my mandate, and there's no other focus I have a part of this one. So whatever could be, whatever is needed from me to be successful in these two pathways will be done.
Recently, we've seen more engagements between the U.S. and Ukraine, and one of the real highlights of that, I think, during UNGA that didn't get a lot of coverage was the First Lady's meeting between the First Lady of Ukraine and our First Lady here in the U.S., Melania Trump. Is there anything that you can tell me about that meeting and how, just give us some insight about how that went?
Well, this was a tete-a-tete meeting, so this was in fact a really meeting between two first ladies. So I think the purpose of this meeting was actually to get to know each other in person and to have this exchanges on a very on a personal level. And I think what was important for Madam Zelenska, the First Lady of Ukraine, is to give some words of gratitude to First Lady for her soft power and for her messages, even though they, she delivered in terms of the future generations of kids who deserve to have families, to have their lives, to have their childhood. And even, when President Trump refers to something First Lady of the United States says about shelling Ukrainian cities, it really enormously increases the morale of every Ukrainian. Somebody cares about us. And, she might have just said these words, but it had such an enormous effect in my country, And I think the purpose of this meeting was that our First Lady says thanks on behalf of all Ukrainian people, and being grateful that she cares. And there were some ideas we've been working prior to this meeting, that we have a huge amount of potential to contribute to this initiative of AI Educational Task Force. So we have a lot of needs which are evolving because of the wartime, but also we have a lot of ideas to suggest because of the wartime and the adjustments we had to face in the education system. So I think there's a lot of things we can suggest as the follow-up of this meeting, but this was a meeting between really two wives of the people who really run the democratic world, I would say.